parsho. Sangye chedang soki chognamla. Jangchu bardu dagni kyapsu chi. Daki chenyen gipe sunam ki. Drola penchir sangye du parsho. And then the four immeasurable thoughts, once in English. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. And we move here to the seven limb prayer, which we will say once in English. Reverently, I prostrate with my body, speech, and mind, and present clouds of every type of offering, actual and mentally transformed. I declare all my negative actions accumulated since beginningless time, and rejoice in the merits of all holy and ordinary beings. Please remain until samsara ends, and turn the wheel of Dharma for sentient beings. I dedicate the merit created by myself and others to the great enlightenment. Now we do the mandala offering. Visualize a purified universe. O zaji perki jokshin me tok, tram ri ram ling ji, ni de gen pa di, sangye jing du mi de ulwa gi. Rokum nam dakshin la chapasho. Idam guru ratna mandala kam nirya tayami. Okay, this is our, hello Linda.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, how are you today?
I'm well.
Good to have you.
Thank you.
We're going to be going, this is our last session, and this session is on, is about cultivating our mind through meditation. And we will start with the preliminary practices. The preliminary practices, I've been doing them in the past 4 sessions, alternating parts of them so that they don't take up as much time. And I could spend more time on each section. But today we're going to do all of the preliminary practices. And I wanted to talk before we start a bit about the importance of them. The preliminary practices are sometimes considered by some people to be not important because they're preliminary, and you want to actually get to the whatever the meat of the class is, or the heart of the teaching. But the preliminary practices are actually extremely important, and they could be a complete Buddhist practice unto themselves. And I would say that anybody who's seriously engaged in these preliminary practices would be they could call themselves a practicing Buddhist. I also would say that some of my most transformative realizations or experiences in meditation have come during these preliminary practices. So they should not be tossed aside as being unimportant. They're extremely important. And one of the things they do is, well, I'll go for a few benefits of these preliminary practices. They connect your heart and mind to the Guru Buddha's heart and mind through these practices. They also connect your heart and mind to other sentient beings' hearts and minds. These practices help in the process. They help us to visualize the process of our own enlightenment. And so in that sense, these preliminary practices, part of these are related to a much more advanced practice, which is called Tantra. But this is where you actually begin. This is the beginning of tantric practice in these preliminary practices. They also increase our positive force, which is very often translated as merit, but they increase our positive force and they help us to remove our negativities. And they also help to remove our obstacles to our happiness, to our liberation, and to our ultimate enlightenment and wisdom. Which you could say omniscience is where we're headed. So what I wanted to say is that we can become a Buddha based on our precious human rebirth, which I've talked about before, our clear light mind, which I've talked about, and the nature of our consciousness, which I've talked about. We'll go into this a little more when we get actually into the final meditation session. We're going to do a meditation session on the clear light mind itself. We can become an enlightened being based on, first of all, the precious human rebirth. And I talked about this before, but I want to say about this is that it's not merely having a human rebirth that has enough mixture of what would you call leisure and suffering. It's not just having that alone. It's actually having the using that life to find out what suffering is, to actually find out what suffering is, to find out what the causes of suffering are, to find the path, to realize that there can be an end to that, and then to find the path that leads you to happiness, enlightenment, and complete release of all suffering. So that's the part of the precious human rebirth, is that we actually take advantage of it, that we don't just sort of lazily go through it and and miss the opportunity of what the precious human rebirth is. So this precious human rebirth is the supreme evolutionary glory attainable by any conscious being. And as human beings, and particularly as human beings with this kind of precious rebirth that we have, and if you are here at this class, or if you were listening to this, you have a precious human rebirth, because otherwise you wouldn't have the inclination nor the time, would you feel you had the time to be interested in anything like this. So it represents a critical moment in our personal evolution. And I want to read a quote or a passage, a foreword by Robert Thurman, which beautifully talks about this. It's a very short thing. Robert Thurman he's the professor of Indo-Tibetan Buddhist Studies at Columbia University in New York, and he's the president of Tibet House. And you can find him online still. He's quite active. But I wanted to read a little from his foreword about what our evolutionary destiny is. Buddhism presents a stunning vision of the timeless origin and infinite permutations of all life forms, locating the precious jewel of an individual human embodiment at a critical moment of personal evolution. It provides this revelation in such a way that individuals can be moved to achieve a fundamental paradigm shift in their vision of their lives. From having been a self-centered, this life-oriented person struggling with the currents and obstacles around them, anxiously seeking some security and happiness before hopefully finding peaceful obliteration in death, to becoming a magnificent awakening being soaring out of an infinite past experience in marvelous evolutionary flight toward an unimaginably beautiful destiny of wisdom, love, and bliss. Buddhahood, or simply the supreme evolutionary glory attainable by any conscious being. And it's beautifully put the way he did that. So this is what we're capable of. This is what we're headed for. This is what these classes are about. This is what the study of Buddhism and the practice of Buddhism is all about. So before we get into the preliminary practices, I want to quickly go over some of the concepts, or some of the concepts that come up. First of all are the three jewels, what are called the three jewels. This refers to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And there are several ways or metaphors of looking at this, which really help us to get a picture of what the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha are. The first metaphor is that the Buddha is a guide who has traveled a pathway that's unfamiliar to us, traveled it from beginning to end many times. He successfully has done this. And so he serves as a guide for us. So that's what the Buddha is, a guide who can lead us on the path. The Dharma itself is the path. That's the path that we take, that we ourselves walk. These are pathways of consciousness that lead gradually, step by step by step by step, all the way to supreme enlightenment. The Sangha, in this metaphor, are fellow travelers that go along with us on the path, that help us along the way, pick us up when we fall, carry a light for us. They are helpers along the path. And they can be a very highly realized beings, and they can be just people who we know, who are fellow Buddhist students, helping us along the path. So then there is a metaphor of that has to do with medicine and doctors. And this metaphor talks about the Buddha as the doctor. The Dharma is the medicine that you take, that the doctor prescribes. The Dharma is the medicine that you actually take, that you ingest. And then the Sangha are those caregivers that help administer that medicine to you, that help you with that medicine. Then this third metaphor, which is actually not even a metaphor, because this third way of looking at it is what we actually are dealing with. So what we are dealing with now is Buddha's representatives. For us, the Buddha's representative is an authoritative spiritual friend, or what we would call guru. A guru is a spiritual friend. And this is somebody who has an authentic lineage from their teachers going all the way back, person to person to person to person to person, all the way back to the Buddha. So when we're looking for a spiritual friend or a guru, this is what we're looking for. So this guru then, that would be like the Buddha for us. It's the Buddha's representative or the Buddha's emissary. You could look at it that way, because at this point, we're not capable of directly communicating with the Buddha. Our minds are not clear enough. They're not uncontaminated enough. Eventually that can happen. Eventually you can directly communicate, but that's a highly, highly realized being that can do that. The Dharma then is the advice and the key instructions of the guru. So you follow this advice and the key instructions of the guru, and that will lead you through these pathways of consciousness, step by step by step. And then the Sangha are those who sustain us with spiritual or material support as we go through this. So that is the way those are the ways of thinking about Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. Now we'll get into the 6 preliminary practices, and we haven't covered all 6 completely, so I will go over these. The first is to clean your room and arrange.
You know what?
Yeah.
Why don't you, Tracy and Brian are just walking on the door. Why don't you pause just a minute?
Okay.
Review Buddha Dharma Sangha so they hear.
Review Buddha Dharma Sangha again?
No. When you start with 6.
Okay.
Just so that they.
All right. Well, I'll have a sip of tea.
Here are
Hi.
Tracy and Brian. Direct from.
Hey,
around
they're
the world.
direct from talking with their spiritual friend and their guru, Geshe Nyima, who's also one of our gurus.
Do we?
Do you have news, huh? Oh, he was elected disciplinarian?
Oh,
Yes.
well, it's sort of like
I don't
across every
well.
wonderful monk has to.
80%
Voted him in.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, wow. So
he couldn't, there's no way he could get out of it.
So Geshe Nyima, who is one of
How
our
long does that last?
A year.
one of our gurus, who was
Geshe
planning
Barbara did that, you know.
to come here in the fall, just got elected. 80% of the
By 80%
Of the monks at
80% of the monks at Drepung Monastery just elected Geshe Nyima to be the monastery's disciplinarian. And it's something he has to do. Our other, our root guru, Geshe Drakpa, was also, they wanted him to be
It was
the,
something he had to do.
he had to do
But
that
maybe
as
it's
well.
like-
I mean, actually with our root guru, think His Holiness the Dalai Lama told him he had to do it.
Geshe Drachma said, took a.
Yeah. When our root guru Geshe Drachma was through with having been the disciplinarian and all of that he had to do, then His Holiness the Dalai Lama said, now you can go and do a 9-year retreat.
He will next year.
So Geshe Nima will be free to come here next year.
After he finished being the principal.
At first he was the principal of the school. Now he's the disciplinarian of the monastery. So he's going to be tough when he gets here.
He expects us to do as instructed
Yeah.
by him.
Anyway, I just got talking about what, for different metaphors of the
I guess we should say Mazel Tov.
Buddha Dharma Sangha.
Mazel Tov and Geshe Drachma.
And then there's the metaphor of the guide who leads you
Okay.
along the path, and
Yeah.
the Sangha or fellow travelers. And there's the metaphor of the medicine. The doctor is the guru,
Oh, yes.
the medicine's the Buddha, and the Sangha are the caregivers that help you. And then the third metaphor is the one that we actually have, is that we have it's not a metaphor, but it's a way of looking at it. It's the way that we deal with it. But those other metaphors help. Is that you have a spiritual friend or guru. Guru is a spiritual friend who is has an authentic lineage that goes, person to person, all the way back to the Buddha, and has and teaches, the authentic Dharma, and you follow their advice and you engage in the practices that they tell you to do, and that he will take you step by step to enlightenment. And so that's Geshe Nima, and Geshe Nima will be here, I guess, next year.
It's sort of amazing, because they always throw in the term unbroken lineage.
Yeah.
And if you contemplate what that
Really means, yeah.
It's amazing. It's person to
those
person.
of us, for example, we all get a special sense with Geshe Nima.
Mhm.
And imagine just that, why is that? Well, he's,
Direct
obviously,
lineage. from
Right.
It's
Buddha.
a lot of, he's
Right.
just a very
Right.
fun individual, but in addition, there's this.
Right.
Yeah.
And we know for sure due to this.
And Geshe Nima has huge. He
Right.
has huge motivation. I mean, it's his motivation to be a benefit is huge. I mean, it's almost palpable when you meet him. So, all right, now we're going into we've not done the 6 preliminary practices in order, and we're going to do that today. And so I'll go through them. The first one is you clean the room and you arrange the objects of what you would say the Buddha's enlightened body, mind, and speech. So you have a Buddha statue, which can serve as all three. It can be the Buddha's body, it can be the Buddha's enlightened mind, it can be the Buddha's enlightened speech, the Buddha's enlightened body, mind, and speech. Or you can have the Buddha statue represent the body of the Buddha. You can have a text. This here is the Heart Sutra, a text which would represent the speech of the Buddha, and then they often say a image or a actual physical little model of a stupa. And here's an image of a stupa. And this represents.
We have 2 upstairs.
Yeah, we have these things all over the place. I had to look for this stuff.
I guess we could bring one.
Yeah, we've had many. We have several altars around the place, and and things keep getting moved. But so it's you arrange. You have the objects of body, mind, and speech. Now, the cleaning the room it's a practice itself, because as you're cleaning or vacuuming, you would be saying, I am sweeping away or vacuuming away all of my afflictive, destructive emotions. You see that the dirt is like the dirt of our afflictive emotions. And then also you're saying, I am sweeping away my obscurations to gaining an insight into what emptiness means. To gaining wisdom, the wisdom that understands, and then the wisdom that realizes what emptiness is. As you're sweeping away, as you're vacuuming away, you're saying you're removing the obstacles to that as well. So it's the obstacles you're removing your afflictive emotions, and you're removing the obstacles to gaining wisdom. So that's part of when you're cleaning the room, you're doing that. So that it becomes a practice in itself. Then you arrange the objects. These objects need to Oh yeah, then you have the offerings, which can be many things, but the important part is that you acquire these offerings in a way that doesn't include taking them from somebody else or stealing, or it's something that's not yours. So it's just you acquire offerings properly and you arrange them as beautifully as you can. So that this could be anything from incense, candles, water bowls filled with water, flowers, whatever is works for you. But there's some kind of offering. And as you're arranging these offerings, say if you're pouring water in the water bowls, or you're arranging the flowers, or you're lighting the candles, what you're thinking is that you're imagining that these offerings are huge and they're filling up the space in front of the Buddha, and you're dedicating all of these offerings, even though they're just these small little things. You imagine them as being multiplied thousands and thousands of times, and you dedicate these offerings to the benefit of all sentient beings, to the enlightenment of all sentient beings. So that's what you do when you're making these offerings. Then we go to the third preliminary practices, and this is what we've done before. You start with the posture, which traditionally you would be on a cushion, and the bottom of the cushion would be lower than the back of the cushion. What I'm using right here is one of these, which works beautifully. And it's very comfortable, actually. But you can sit in any position that's comfortable. Not everybody can do this. Some people have physical limitations. Dalai Lama says even if you have to lie down, you can do this lying down. The problem is, you might fall asleep. So you want to try and stay alert if you're lying down. One of the most important parts of this, because of the way the energy channels run through our body, is to try and keep the spine as straight as possible. And if you can't do that for whatever reason, just imagine that the energy channels that run on either side of your spine and in front of the center of the spine, imagine that those energy channels are straight, that they're not all crooked and bent, and even if there's a physical problem. So the spine is straight, the chin is slightly down, so that the neck is sort of straight and aligned with the spine. It's only slightly. You'd have your tongue is at the roof of your mouth behind your teeth. Your eyes are slightly open. They can be closed if that's more comfortable for you, but they can just be barely open and sort of looking down in the space in front of you. Your hands can be either, you can rest them, your palms on your knees, or you can put your hands like this, with your right hand is, your palms are open like this, and your right hand is resting in your left hand, and the thumbs are touching, and you're holding these just below your navel as you're sitting. Did I miss one? There are like various parts of it, but that's the basic posture. Yeah, I did that one. The head slightly, the eyes, yeah. I think I got it all. Okay. So then what we do is this series.
You didn't mention prostrations.
That the prostrations are actually in
the
seven limb. Yeah, that's why it's not part of this. Yeah. So then we're going through. Now we can actually begin, and we'll begin in earnest with the visualization. I'm going to include the 9 breaths, which we've talked about before. Just to remind people, when we're doing these 9 breaths, you start by breathing in through your right nostril, go up to the crown of your head, come down along the right side of your spine, come to the base of your spine, make a U-turn, come back up the left side of your spine to the crown of your head and out the left nostril. You do that 3 times, then you reverse the direction. You start with the left nostril and do just the opposite. And then the third time, you breathe in through both nostrils, come to the crown of your head, goes down both sides of the spine. When you make the U-turn, then they come up the central channel that's right in front of the spine, up the central channel and out the crown. And you do that 3 times. So that makes the series of 9 breaths. And what we're moving there is sort of the subtle winds that the mind or the consciousness rides on throughout the entire body. And I will do these 9 breaths in the way that Lama Yeshe talks about them, and in the and some other meditators talk about using these 9 breaths. So it'll be slightly different than what we did last week. Okay, so here we go. And in terms of these visualizations, just imagine. It's just imagine. Don't worry if you're not actually seeing anything. Just imagine the way you normally just imagine things. So just begin by breathing in and out through your nose. And imagine in the space in front of you a radiant clarity. And this radiant clarity is the mind or consciousness of the Guru Buddha. If you have a guru, think of this as the mind or the consciousness of your guru. If not, think of the Buddha as your guru. As you breathe in, feel that the Guru Buddha is connecting with you. As you breathe out, feel that you are connecting with the Guru Buddha. Now begin the process of the 9 breaths, breathing in this energy of the Guru Buddha through your right nostril, up to the crown, down the right side of your spine. As you get to the base of the spine and you make the U-turn and you're coming up the left side of the spine, imagine that you are releasing all of your afflictive anger. And that anger then goes out your left nostril and dissipates into the radiant clarity of the mind of the Guru Buddha. Do that 3 times. Now reverse the direction, breathing in through the left nostril. As it turns at the base of the spine and comes back out through your nose, imagine that you are releasing all of your afflictive attachment energy. And if it helps, you can imagine this to be like liquid black smoke that completely just dissipates when it enters into the radiant clarity in front of you. And do that 3 times. And then the 3rd time, breathe through both nostrils. As you come to the base of the spine, and then bring that energy up through the central channel, releasing it out through the crown of your head. Imagine that you're releasing all of your afflictive ignorance, your confusion, your lack of wisdom. And you can imagine that as liquid black smoke that just dissipates into the radiant clarity of the Guru Buddha. Now just imagine that you're breathing in clean, clear energy and breathing out clean, clear energy. At the center of this radiant clarity in front of you, imagine that you begin to see color form, like colors being reflected through crystal clear drops of water in the sky, coming out like rainbow colors. But these rainbow colors are very intense. They're very, very clear. They call them 5 stainless colors. So these colors that begin to form are blue, white, red, yellow, and green. And these colors begin to move and take form of Buddha Shakyamuni. It's a radiant golden body, indigo hair, red lips, saffron robe. And Buddha Shakyamuni is sitting on a multicolored lotus, which is on top of a magnificent platform of multicolored light, like jewels. Again, think of this as your guru in the form of Buddha Shakyamuni, or think of Buddha Shakyamuni, if you don't have a guru, as your guru. The Buddha is radiating light, sort of like the rays of the sun are coming out in all directions from the Buddha. And these light rays are reflecting the 5 stainless colors. And this light radiates perfect loving kindness, compassion, and profound wisdom. Directly in front of you and on either side of you and behind you now, imagine countless sentient beings. All of the life forms, conscious life forms that pervade the entire universe, every realm, every dimension. Now imagine that all of these sentient life forms surrounding you take on the aspect of a precious human rebirth, so that they are all humans with a mind capable of understanding the Dharma, following the Buddha's guidance, and relying upon the Sangha. All of these sentient beings, just like you, are going through the ups and downs of life as a sentient being, the cycles of samsara, suffering, a little bit of happiness, but it's temporary, birth, aging, sickness, and death. And these sentient beings are looking, like you, towards the Guru Buddha for guidance, for help. And here we come to the part which is called refuge, but it's also refuge. The Sanskrit word can be also translated as taking a safe direction. And this is based on fear and faith. Fear that if we continue in the direction that we've been going in, we're going to keep making mistakes. We're going to keep suffering. We're going to keep going through this endless cycle of birth, aging, sickness, and death, round and round and round and round, and never get out of it. And the faith is that the Buddha, who was once a sentient being just like the rest of us, knows the way out, knows how to guide us. So here we now, all of us, take safe direction in the Guru Buddha as a guide that can lead us out of our confusion, our suffering, and bring us to perfect happiness, liberation, and enlightenment. And the formula that we use is the Sanskrit, it's the Pali formula, which was the original language of the Buddha. It's Buddham Saranam Gacchami. Buddham, of course, means Buddha. Saranam means take safe direction, or safe direction, and Gacchami means I take. So it's basically I take safe direction in the Buddha. And imagine that you and all sentient beings recite this to the Buddha 3 times. And as we are reciting this, imagine that rays of nectar pour into your body and the bodies of all sentient beings, completely coming from the Buddha and completely removing all obstacles they have to following the guidance of our Guru, following the guidance of the Buddha. Buddham Saranam Gacchami. Buddham Saranam Gacchami. Buddham Saranam Gacchami. You feel that your obstacles to following the guidance of the Buddha have been removed. Now emanating from the Buddha, imagine that there is a frequency, almost like a sound frequency, a beautiful healing frequency emanating from the Buddha. And this is the Dharma. These are the teachings of the Buddha, the path by path, step-by-step pathways of consciousness that will lead us to enlightenment. And imagine this frequency is entering your being and the being of all the sentient beings. And as we take the next part of the refuge, which is Dhammam Saranam Gacchami, imagine as this frequency enters your body that all obstacles to following the path that the Buddha guides us on are removed. Dhammam Saranam Gacchami. Dhammam Saranam Gacchami. Dhammam Saranam Gacchami. And feel that those obstacles to following the path have been removed for you and all sentient beings. Now imagine that you're seeing beings of light emanating from the Buddha, almost as if they're riding on this frequency of the Dharma. And these beings of light are what we would call the Sangha, very highly realized beings who've had a direct, non-conceptual experience of emptiness, the nature of reality. Still have more work to do before they achieve enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. But they are on the path with us. Then this goes down as well. The Sangha is also the monks, the nuns, the spiritual teachers who help us along the path. And also those fellow Buddhists, fellow students, kind of like our little Buddhist family, who helps us along the path itself. This is the Sangha. And imagine as we say Sangam Saranam Gacchami, that all of our obstacles to being helped and engaging with the Sangha are removed. Sangam Saranam Gacchami. Sangam Saranam Gacchami. Sangam Saranam Gacchami. So feel that all of your obstacles to from the guidance of the Buddha Guru to following the pathways of consciousness that lead to enlightenment, to relying on the Sangha, your Buddhist friends who are helping you. Imagine that all obstacles to that have been removed. As you are aware of the sentient beings that are around you, facing the Buddha, you realize that some of these sentient beings would be what you would consider friends. They may be very close to you, family, friends, people who you have a lot in common with or who you agree with. You also realize that out there are also people who you don't like, who you might even consider enemies, who might arouse fear in you or disdain. But the vast majority of these sentient beings are complete strangers. You don't know anything about them. The one thing that unites all of us is that we all want to be happy, and none of us want to suffer. We all may have different ideas of what happiness and suffering is, but in terms of wanting to be happy and not wanting to suffer, there is not one iota of difference between us, our friends, our enemies, and all the strangers. So now, you look directly in the face of the Buddha, and you think these thoughts. I no longer want to live a self-centered, this life-oriented existence, having a little bit of happiness, a little bit of suffering, only to end in obliteration in death. Instead, I'm now choosing to soar out of my infinite past into a magnificent destiny, following the guidance of the Guru, following the pathway of the Dharma, with the help of the Sangha, to become completely enlightened for the benefit of all sentient beings. With this thought, the Guru Buddha is extremely pleased. And a duplicate of the Guru Buddha emerges from his heart, comes to the crown of your head, facing in the same direction as you're facing. Imagine that your mind now is completely empty, like empty space, filled with bliss. And the Guru Buddha now sinks into you, and your minds merge. The Guru Buddha's mind is completely empty, like empty space filled with bliss. And the two mix like water. Feel that you begin to become transformed into the Buddha that you have the potential to be. That your body now becomes a radiant light body. And from every pore of your being, you begin to radiate out light in all directions to all of the sentient beings surrounding you. And on these rays of light, you emanate duplicates of yourself that go out to the crowns of the sentient beings in front of you. Initially to those who you have karmic relationships with. And you merge with them, helping them to become the Buddha that they have the potential to become. This in turn begins to spread. These people that you have helped then help other sentient beings. And sort of like a mass enlightenment, you begin to see all around you that all sentient beings have become enlightened. Of course, this is only occurring in your imagination, in your visualization. But think, wouldn't it be wonderful if all sentient beings had happiness and the causes of happiness? We're free from suffering and the causes of suffering. We're completely filled with joy and liberated from samsaric existence. And we're completely filled without bias, without attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. Wouldn't that be wonderful? Then you think, I'm going to do something about this. May I be inspired by my Guru and the Buddhas to have the power to accomplish this. Now imagine that all of this visualization of all these enlightened beings surrounding you now, which were once sentient beings, they are drawn into the heart of the Buddha in front of you. And then the Buddha in front of you is drawn to the crown of your head, descends down into your heart, where there is an open lotus. And you hold that Buddha there with your vision of a completely enlightened consciousnesses of sentient beings that have become completely enlightened. You hold that vision. Everything disappears. And now again, imagine that your mind is like empty space, filled with bliss. Out of this empty space, like bubbles arising out of water, now you imagine a completely purified environment. A gorgeous, lush, green meadow, sparkling like jewels. And you are standing there. In the sky in front of you, appearing like a rainbow would appear in the sky, emerges again the Guru Buddha, seated in a lotus, radiating light in all directions, reflecting the light of the 5 stainless colors. And you think of this as this is the merit field visualization. And another translation of merit is positive force. So another way you could think of this is the positive force field. And this now is about our own personal development, this particular aspect of the preliminaries. And we are now engaging in what is called the 7-limb practice. The first of these 7 limbs is prostration. And here what you imagine, rather than being surrounded by countless other sentient beings, you are at the front of the line, and on either side of you and behind you, stretching out infinitely, are all of your past incarnations. All the various life forms you've been since beginningless time that have brought you up to this moment. And again, imagine that all of these life forms take on the appearance of a human precious rebirth. To sort of get a grasp of how this actually is functioning in your mind, imagine that on either side of you, parts of yourself from this life step out and line up on either side of you. So think of yourself from your earliest memories, if you can, as a baby, as a toddler, as a young child, as a 12-year-old, as a teenager, as an adult, all the way up to who you are now. You know that these parts of yourself don't exist anymore. However, you also realize that you carry them with you in your mind. They affect who you are now. They form the propensities of your mind. And in this way, all of your past rebirths have formed the propensities in your mind. Even though you can't remember them now, they are there. And this is the way you think of this. So now we engage in prostration, all of these parts of yourself. And first we prostrate with our body, then we prostrate with our speech, then we prostrate with our mind. And the way to think of this as you imagine yourself and all of the parts of yourself prostrating in front of the Buddha in the sky is that you prostrate with your body, saying that may all the actions of my body only be pleasing to you. May they follow all the actions of my body. Follow your guidance. Follow the Dharma. So imagine that you prostrate once with your body. And the second prostration is a prostration of speech. And you think, may all of my words, all of the words that I speak, be based upon your guidance, be based upon the Dharma. Then all of you prostrate. And then the third prostration is the mind. And you think, may all the thoughts in my mind, the conceptions in my mind, the intentions of my mind, all be in line with your guidance, all be in line with the teachings of the Dharma, and with a deep sense of connection with the Guru Buddha and gratitude and humility, all of you prostrate a third time. This first limb of the seven limb practice serves as an antidote to our arrogance, our arrogant pride. The second limb is called offering. And here, imagine the most beautiful thing you could offer, whatever it may be. Imagine that all of the parts of yourself from the time you were a baby up until now are making the most beautiful offering that they can imagine, whatever that may be. Imagine all the parts of yourself extending but as many as there are tiny atoms throughout the universe since beginningless time. They are all making an offering of whatever they think is the most beautiful offering that they can make. And imagine now that these offerings are sent to the Guru Buddha in the lotus in the sky. And it's waves and waves and oceans of clouds of offerings that are sent to the Buddha. Then imagine that all of these offerings come together in a sphere of light in front of the Buddha. And they are transformed into the intention to become enlightened for the benefit of all sentient beings. And then you send the sphere of light into the heart of the Buddha, who accepts it with great joy. This second limb of offering serves as an antidote to our miserliness. The third limb is called confession, and it has 4 parts to it, and they're called 4 opponent powers. An easy way to remember them is you think of them as the 4 R's. They are regret, reliance, remedy, and resolve. The first one, regret. Here what we're regretting is all of the negative actions we've committed since beginningless time. And here we go back to what we've talked about these 5 sessions. Go back to these families of afflictive emotions. Think of the anger family. Think of the malice, the hatred, the yelling, the screaming, the harsh words, even physical abuse that you may have even engaged in this lifetime out of anger. And you regret this as if it were poison that you had taken. Think of the attachment, the afflictive attachment family. This craving desire, this greed, this wish to manipulate and manipulate even by deceptive means through lying, stealing, cheating, because the object of your attachment is so important to you that you actually can hurt others by it. And again, think how much you regret this, as if it were poison that you yourself had taken. Then think of the arrogant pride family. Think of the times that you have called somebody a jerk or an asshole, or think of yourself as superior to others. This is arrogant pride, and it is like a poison. It separates us from others. It doesn't allow us to see our commonality. It hurts ourselves and it hurts others. And think of it as if it were poison that you had been taking. Then think of the jealousy and the envy family. That somebody has something that you want so badly that you don't want them to have it, that you would do anything you could to have it and take it away from them. This terrible, gnawing kind of jealousy that we have experienced. Think how it hurts yourself like poison. Think how it hurts others. And then finally, think of this family of afflictive doubt. And what this means is that this is doubt tending towards the wrong conclusion. And where this doubt leads is to panic, anxiety, depression, and excessive guilt. And we know this is like poison to us. When you think of all of these afflictive emotions that we've been studying, you realize first how much harm they're causing you. They are preventing you yourself from moving forward to realizing happiness, to realizing liberation from your suffering, and to attaining enlightenment. And also realize how much they actually hurt others. And you truly regret this. And then finally, think of just the ignorance that we have. All of these afflictive emotions are based on our ignorance of how the self exists and how phenomena exists. We are ignorant of the nature of reality, and this is causing all of these problems. So the next opponent power after regret is reliance. And here we're relying on the Guru as the guide, the Dharma as the path we take, and the Sangha as our fellow travelers who will help us along that path. But we're also relying on friends, enemies, and strangers. In other words, we're relying on all sentient beings. Because without all sentient beings, we will never be able to develop our positive inner qualities. We will never be able to develop our patience, our loving kindness, our compassion. This only comes through our interaction with other sentient beings. So our reliance is on these two things: all sentient beings and the Guru, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha that lead us all the way to enlightenment and help us to grow our wisdom, our loving kindness, and our compassion. The third opponent power is called remedy. How do we remedy this? What is the antidote for all of this? So the remedy could be any kind of meritorious action that you do. Could be prayers that you say, it could be helping others, it could be charity, it could be generosity. But the actual true remedy is the Dharma itself. So listening to the Dharma, studying the Dharma, reading the Dharma, contemplating the Dharma, meditating on the Dharma until the Dharma becomes part of your mind stream, something that you can rely on in any situation at any time, and it will give you the answer that you need for the situation you're in. This is the true remedy, the Dharma. And the fourth opponent of power, following regret, reliance, and remedy, is resolve. And here our resolve has a two-pronged approach. We resolve to firmly oppose all of our afflictive emotions, realizing that they are like poison to us and they harm others and they cause us to remain in samsara, in this endless cycle of birth, aging, sickness, and death and confusion. And we have to oppose these. We have to put a stop to our afflictive emotions. And the other prong of this two-pronged approach is that we will grow and cultivate all of our good qualities, including our wisdom. We will cultivate an understanding of what emptiness is. We will meditate upon emptiness until we finally have a non-conceptual, direct experience of it. And that will be our release, combined with this altruistic intention to be of benefit to all sentient beings. So those are the four opponent powers, this branch or a limb of confession, they call it confession. And it serves as an antidote to what they call the three poisons, which are anger, attachment, and ignorance. The next limb is rejoicing. We rejoice in the qualities of all holy and ordinary beings. So you think you're rejoicing in the qualities of the Buddha, rejoicing in the qualities of your guru, rejoice in the qualities of your spiritual teachers, but also rejoice in the qualities of everyday beings, in their talents, their accomplishments, all of their abilities, what they can do. So often we don't rejoice in others' good qualities. So often we become envious or jealous. And the teachers say that this is the easiest way, this particular limb, rejoicing, is the easiest way to gain positive force, to gain merit, to gain positive potential. Because it's so easy to do. All we have to do is let go of our jealousy and rejoice in the good qualities of others. And it's a powerful force. When you see people who are like this, who actually can do this, it is an amazing thing to see. It's like they're spreading sunshine wherever they go because they are rejoicing in others' good qualities. And it gives them a positive force. People respond to this. So this limb then is the antidote to jealousy. The next limb is we make this request to the Guru, Buddha, and all of our spiritual teachers to please remain until samsara ends. Don't leave us. Stay with us. No matter how much we may fail, please stay with us. And this serves as an antidote to very often, this can happen where we find fault with our guru, where we find fault with our spiritual teachers, where we disappoint our spiritual teachers by not following their directions. So this serves as an antidote to recognize the importance of them, to come back to them, and to make that connection with them, reconnect. The next limb is another petition, is to turn the wheel of Dharma for sentient beings. We're asking the Guru, the Buddhas, all of our spiritual teachers, to keep turning this wheel of Dharma, to keep the teachings alive for all sentient beings. And this serves as an antidote to when we kind of, our practice deteriorates. We stop practicing. We don't engage in the things that we had committed to engaging in. What we do is we just pick ourselves up, dust ourselves off, and start all over again. We just keep going no matter what. So asking them to remain and to teach the Dharma until samsara ends, is an antidote to this sort of falling off of our practice. The next limb is we dedicate the merit or whatever positive force that we have gained in going through this 7-limb practice. We dedicate this to the enlightenment of all sentient beings. And you can imagine that you take this positive force that you have gained, whatever it may be, however slight this may be, whatever slight realizations you may have had, you send them into the heart of the Buddha. You send them to the Buddha in the sky to hold them there for you. You dedicate the merit for the enlightenment of all sentient beings. So now we engage in the next part of the preliminary practices, which is the mandala offering. And here we visualize ourselves again. We're in front of the Guru Buddha, or the Guru Buddha is in front of us. And we are now offering a mandala. What we do now is imagine a completely purified universe, where all the matter is purified, all the consciousness is purified. And just imagine what that would look like to you. And sort of visualize this in a round mandala in front of you. As I will say this, I will recite this mandala prayer and visualize a purified universe. Ozaji perki jokshin me to Dram ram lingji Nide gen padi Sangye jingdu mi de ulwagi Drokum nam dakshin la chepasho. And then send this mandala into the heart of the Guru Buddha as we recite Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kam Niriyantaya. And finally, the 6th preliminary practice is we make supplications to the Guru Buddha.
Don't leave us.
Well, we've already done that one. We've already done the don't leave us. That was in the 7th limb. Here, the supplications to the Buddha, what we're asking the Guru Buddha is to help us subdue all of our negative qualities. Help us subdue all of our afflictive, disturbing emotions. The second supplication we make to the Guru Buddha is to help us remove the obstacles to our wisdom. We have a lot of ignorance. Please help us understand what the nature of reality is so that we combine this with this altruistic intention to become enlightened for the benefit of all sentient beings and that we can attain Buddhahood. And then the third supplication is, we understand that whatever you're doing, whatever you're teaching us, is for our benefit. So may all of our actions, body, speech, and mind, only be pleasing to you. And with that, imagine that the Guru, Buddha, comes to the crown of your head. Dissolves into you, as before, your mind and the Guru Buddha's mind. Think of them as being completely empty and blissful, and they merge as one. And then the guru then goes down to your heart, enters the open lotus. The lotus closes, and you hold all of this in your heart. And that completes the preliminary practices. And as you become really familiar with these and are able to do these on your own without some kind of guidance, they become more and more personal. They become more and more meaningful. And you will see that there will be a lot of ahas and realizations that occur if you do this. So this, like I was saying before at the beginning, just because they call them preliminary practices does not mean that there's somehow something that you just want to get over with to get to the meat of the matter. They're very powerful meditations. And if you did nothing but the preliminary practices, you would be a good Buddhist. You would be doing your job. So that completes these 6 preparatory practices. And I mean, these will be, all of these are going to be posted on the website. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a YouTube playlist.
Yeah, there's a YouTube playlist.
Each of these sessions that you've been
Yeah.
on.
So you could just go.
Yeah, I assume there's a link on our website, but our YouTube channel.
Yeah.
is linked, and I'll double check.
We'll put a link on the website. Yeah.
I think there is, but I don't remember how it's presented right now.
So you could follow that. You could go, and follow that until you got familiar yourself with it. There are also other books that you can get on this. One is called Jorcho, Jorcho with an umlaut over the O. You can get it at Amazon, I believe. This will go through these preliminary practices in a very, very traditional way.
Do you have it there?
I did, but I don't know where it is. I had it, but oh yeah, here it is. Here it is. Here's what it looks like.
That was Geshe-Nima's.
And Geshe Nima suggested that we get this. Now, if you have not studied the traditional Tibetan preliminary practices, it can be quite overwhelming and confusing. And so what I have done is boil it down to the basic meat of the matter so that we can get through it and understand it. And this was something that our root guru, Geshe Dragpa, said, yes, do that. The traditional Buddhist preliminary practices they date back to a medieval culture, and that doesn't always work for where we're at now. But they're helpful to look at. They really are helpful. It's worthwhile looking at. There's another book called Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand, which goes in great detail through these preliminary practices, and they're all beneficial. They're all good to look at.
Stories in there too.
Oh my God, lots of stories.
Which are entertaining and fun.
Yeah, basically it's a series of teachings. Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand are a series of teachings given by the guru Pabongka Rinpoche during the 1920s in Tibet. And this was when Tibet was not open to the rest of the world, really. So you're really, it's a view into almost a medieval culture, because not much had changed until, it started to change in the 20th century for sure. And then once the Chinese invasion occurred, the whole thing just blew open and it came to the West. This is why we're able to do this now, because the Dalai Lama has been able to come to the West because
How kind of the Chinese.
it's one way of looking at it. That's one way of looking at it.
He would still be there. It might not be an open culture still.
Yeah, no, right.
Had that not happened, we wouldn't have access to this.
As
And this
horrible
is,
as it was, the positive side is it brought Buddhism to the rest of the world and not just kept it in Tibet.
yeah. So now I want to go into the final part of these sessions and read from the introduction part of what His Holiness has to say about meditation as mental cultivation. And then we will actually do his first meditation, which is a clear light meditation. So it ties into all the past talk that I've been dealing with about clear light mind and our Buddha nature. So this is the final chapter, meditation as mental cultivation. And this is beyond, my post note, this is beyond religion. We have now explored in some detail what spirituality and ethical living entail in terms of personal practice. We have discussed some ways to bring mindful awareness into everyday life, some ways to develop greater awareness so that we can learn to regulate our emotions, and finally, some ways to actively cultivate our inner values. Since all these practices, especially the last two, involve some degree of disciplined application of the mind, in this final chapter, I would like to say a few words about cultivating mental discipline. For myself, such cultivation is an indispensable part of daily life. On the one hand, it helps reinforce my determination always to act compassionately for the well being of others. On the other, it helps me keep in check those afflictive thoughts and emotions by which we are all assailed from time to time, and to maintain a calm mind. By mental cultivation, I mean a disciplined application of mind that involves deepening our familiarity with a chosen object or theme. Here I am thinking of the Sanskrit term bhavana, which connotes cultivation, and whose Tibetan equivalent, gom, has the connotation of familiarization. These two terms, often translated into English as meditation, refer to a whole range of mental practices and not just, as many suppose, to simple methods of relaxation. The original term implies a process of cultivating familiarity with something, whether it is a habit, a way of seeing, or a way of being. How then does this process of mental cultivation lead to spiritual and inner transformation? Here it may be helpful to invoke the idea of the, quote, three levels of understanding as found in the classical Buddhist theory of mental transformation. These levels are understanding derived through hearing or learning, understanding derived through reflection, and understanding derived through contemplative experience. For example, consider people who are seeking to understand the deeply interdependent nature of today's world. They may first learn about it by listening to someone talk about this issue or by reading about it. But unless they deeply reflect upon what they hear or read, their understanding remains superficial and closely tied to their knowledge of the meaning of the words. At this level, their understanding of a given fact will only be an informed assumption. However, as they then reflect more deeply upon its meaning, applying analysis, as well as dwelling mindfully upon the conclusion they reach, a deep sense of conviction arises of the truth of the fact. This is the second level in the process of understanding. Finally, as they continue to cultivate deep familiarity with the fact, their insight into it becomes internalized, making it almost part of their own nature. They have then reached the third level of understanding, which is characterized in the classical texts as experiential, spontaneous, and effortless. There's nothing mysterious about this process of transformation. In fact, it's something that occurs in our everyday life. A good analogy is the process of acquiring a skill, such as swimming or riding a bicycle, where the key factor is actual practice. In the context of education, for example, this progression from first hearing or learning to deepening one's understanding through critical reflection to conviction is quite usual. It is well known, for instance, that knowledge that is based simply on hearing or reading without being processed through reflection does not lead to strong conviction. For this reason, it cannot result in any real change. But if through critical reflection, we have gained deep conviction about what we have learned, this can lead to a serious commitment on our part to make that knowledge part of our personal outlook. This process applies not just to the development of the intellect, but also to that of our more effective qualities, such as compassion. Through critical reflection, we come to recognize the value of compassion. This can in turn lead to a profound admiration of the virtue itself. Admiration of the virtue may then lead to a commitment to cultivate compassion within ourselves, and this commitment to actual practice. In other words, awareness of the benefits gives rise to conviction that it's worthwhile to practice, and practice leads us to actually realize or bring into being the quality or virtue we began by reflecting on. All the major faith traditions emphasize the importance of developing one's inner life, and many of the techniques found in my own tradition exist in some form in other traditions as well. In particular, there are many similarities between the various mental training practices used in different Indian contemplative traditions. But large areas are shared with other spiritual traditions too. Recently, for example, I attended a very enjoyable and informative talk on contemplative prayer given by a Christian Carmelite monk who pointed out some striking similarities between Christian and Buddhist techniques. Yet, for all the associations of meditation or mental cultivation with religion, there's no reason why it should not be undertaken in an entirely secular context. After all, mental discipline itself requires no faith commitment. All it requires is a recognition that developing a calmer, clearer mind is a worthwhile endeavor, and an understanding that doing so will benefit both oneself and others. I'll jump along because I want to be able to spend about a half an hour on the meditation itself. Now he's talking about dealing with procrastination, which is a major problem. I mean, we all have busy lives, we have a lot to do, and it's very easy to sort of push it off. I think it happens to everybody. For the beginner, the first requirement for mental cultivation is a serious commitment to practice. Without such a commitment, it's unlikely that a person will ever get around to starting at all. I sometimes tell a story in connection with the problem of procrastination. I'll skip that story. The point of the story is that unless we make time and a proper commitment for the things we tell ourselves and others we're going to do, we will always have other obligations and more pressing concerns, while death may intervene at any time. Planning our practice. At the outset, I should sound a note of caution. As the beginning meditator will quickly discover, the mind is like a wild horse. Like a wild horse, it takes a long time, as well as familiarity with the person who wishes to tame it, before it will settle down and obey commands. Similarly, only with gentle persistence over an extended period will the real benefits of meditation become apparent. It's all right to set aside just a few days to try out a short program of mental training, but it's wrong to judge the results before you have really given it a chance. It may take months, even years, to realize its full benefits. He says early morning is generally a good time of day to do it. At that time, the mind is at its freshest and clearest. However, if you're going to practice well early in the morning, you need to have a good night's sleep beforehand. The Dalai Lama, he gets up every morning at 3:30, and he makes sure, and he gets 8 or 9 hours of sleep before that. So, and the times that we've been able to get up, say at 4, and are alert, it is a wonderful time to practice meditation. There are no interruptions, and some real progress can be made during those times. As for the amount of time you should aim to set aside for meditation, in the early stages, even 10 to 15 minutes per session is quite adequate. In fact, it's much better to have modest ambitions than to embark on an unsustainable program, which is more likely to put you off than to help you ingrain a habit. It's also helpful to plan to practice for a few minutes several times during the day in addition to the main session. As you keep a fire going by stoking it every so often, you can maintain the continuum of your meditation by topping it up every now and again so that what you gained earlier does not fade away. We already talked about the physical posture. We've already done the breathing, take a few deep breaths before you begin, and you breathe normally. Focus on your breath as the air enters and leaves through the nostrils. Try to get your mind in a neutral state. This is what we were doing earlier. Okay. Now I want to go to this first practice, and I will read you a little bit about it. Present moment awareness. With your mind quite relaxed with some form of breathing exercise, a useful practice is to try to rest your mind in, as it were, its natural state of basic awareness, or what we can call present moment awareness. When you begin, it's important to set a forceful intention not to allow your mind to be swept away by thoughts of what might happen in the future or recollections of things that have happened in the past. Instead, establish the intention to place your mind simply on the present moment and to keep it there as long as possible. When undertaking this present practice, it is a good idea to sit, if possible, facing a wall that has no striking color or pattern. Then, after several deep breaths, you simply rest your mind and start to observe it. This is actually quite a difficult thing to do at first. In our everyday life, our mental world is dominated by object-oriented states, either in the form of sensory experiences or in the form of thoughts, memories, and ideas. Very rarely do we experience a state that is not tied to specific content, but simply rests in the mind's natural state of awareness. So, when you initially engage in this meditation, inevitably you will find that your mind wanders off, thoughts and images float through your conscious awareness, or a memory pops up for no apparent reason. When this happens, do not get caught up in the energy of these thoughts and images by trying to suppress them or reinforce them. Simply observe them and let them go as if they are clouds appearing in the sky and fading from view, or bubbles arising and dissolving back into water. Over time, you will begin to catch glimpses of your mind's basic state of awareness, or what could be called its mere luminosity. As you proceed in this way, every now and then you will come to experience short intervals of what feels like an absence or a vacuum when your mind has no particular content. Your first successes in this will only be fleeting, but with persistence over a long period, what begins as a glimpse can gradually be extended, and you can start to understand that the mind is like a mirror or clear water in which images appear and disappear without affecting the medium in which they appear. Um, when he's talking about when he talks about luminosity, there, that is a term that they often talk about when they talk about the clear mind. They'll say that the clear light mind is clear and knowing, or it's luminous and knowing. This luminosity and the clarity, and even the light, when they say clear light, it actually has nothing to do with physical light. It's a kind of expansive clarity. We've tried this a few times and I've had some fleeting glimpses of it, but those fleeting glimpses have been pretty memorable.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
Yeah.
really, really memorable. So what I want to do is Geshe Dragpa, our
It's
root,
true, it's interesting, isn't it?
yeah, our root guru gave us some advice. He gave a whole class on this. It's called in the Gelug tradition, it's called Mahamudra meditation. In the Kagyu, it's called Dzogchen. But the way he said to do this is to start out by actually focusing on what I talked about in earlier sessions, the main minds. There are 6 minds, and they have to do with our sense consciousness and our mental consciousness. So he said, actually focus on these so that you know what it is you're not shooting for, you know? So we'll begin by doing that. And
Can I
yeah,
interject something
Yeah.
about this, the importance of this? He also, Geshe Dragpa also mentioned in this very first teaching he gave us way back when. And it was, in sum, the existence, this nature, this pure luminous nature of the mind, this core essence of our consciousness is why it is possible and worthwhile to study and practice Dharma, because that is the basis for our enlightenment.
Mhm.
So it was very essential to his very, very first teaching. It's sort of like, why would you practice all this stuff if, you know, the fertile field is it's already there. It needs to be arrived at through this, you know, the Dharma path. But I just found that to be quite meaningful, that he had said it in a way that I didn't even remember until we listened
I know.
Or red.
Me too. We took a video of that first teaching, and I was stunned when we looked at it last year to realize he was talking about clear light mind meditation, and it's just like, "Beep," I don't know what he's talking about, you know. As you may recall, we have these main minds, and they are it's kind of a gross what do they call gross consciousnesses. So in Buddhism, when they use the word mind and consciousness, it's synonymous. They're not talking about the brain. The brain is a physical organ which the mind, the consciousness, works through, uses. Just as the eyeball is a physical organ like a camera, which the eye consciousness has awareness through. So if you think of a camera has no awareness. It's just a takes a picture. But what we do as humans, our eyes, they're like these organs. They're like a camera, but that's not the consciousness. It's not the eyeball that's the consciousness. It's not the eardrum that's the consciousness. There is a separate consciousness that goes with the eye, a separate consciousness that experiences what the eardrum is bringing in. It's like a microphone has no consciousness. It just picks up sound. We're different. We have a consciousness. These are consciousnesses. So they call them, these are our main minds or main consciousness. There are 6 of them. There's eye, ear, nose, taste, and tactile consciousness. And then there are 5. And then there's the 6 is the mental consciousness. So we're going to kind of briefly look at these, try to experience these, try to parse them out from one another so that we get a sense of what those consciousnesses are. Because underlying all of them is this clear light mind, this clear light consciousness, this primordial, non-conceptual awareness, knowing, and understanding. It can be positively influenced. It can grow, and it can grow. So it's there all the time. What we're trying to do is locate that by locating what it isn't. Okay, so start out just if you can find, like the Dalai Lama said, what it can help if you can look at a blank wall, or if you're near a window and you can look even at just a patch of sky, a blank sky. If not, just look straight in front of you at something that's not going to distract your attention too much, and then as if you're just looking right through it. Don't focus on the thing that's right in front of you. Look as if you're just looking right through it. Do the same as if you're looking at a blank wall or a patch of sky out the window. Try and get it in a comfortable position, and then just as if you're looking right through it. Keep all of your senses open in this meditation. Keep your eyes open, your ears open, everything open, okay? And what we're going to start with is the eye consciousness. So if you kind of look, if you can look kind of maybe straight out in front of you, and then just peripherally, don't focus on any one thing, but just take in peripherally what's around you without any focus on one thing. What the eye consciousness perceives or is aware of is simply shape and color. So as you look straight ahead of you, just notice the things around you in terms of shape and color. See if you can experience them just that way. Keep bringing your attention back to the shape and color. You're going to hear things, your mind, your mental consciousness is going to conceptualize what the things are you're seeing. Let them go and just bring it back to just shape and color. Shape and color is the only thing that the eye consciousness cognizes. Okay? Let's now move to the ear consciousness. Do the same thing, straight in front of you, keep all of your senses open, but now focus on the sounds that you're hearing as mere frequency of sound, frequency. Keep bringing your intention and your focus back to just hearing the sound as frequency. When your mental conceptual consciousness is telling you, well, what that is, well, I know what that sound is, I know what that sound is, just let it go like a bubble and bring it just back to the ear consciousness hearing frequency. Okay, again, remember that the only thing the ear consciousness cognizes is sound frequency. The ear consciousness does not tell you what that sound is. The eye consciousness does not tell you what the shape and the color is. We'll get to that consciousness. That consciousness we know really, really well. That's the mental consciousness. But let's now go to the nose, the sense, the smell consciousness. There may be not much to smell, but just, do your best. Just focus on whatever it is, the conscious awareness of any smell that may be coming through the nose consciousness. If it's neutral, it's neutral. Okay. It's an interesting thing about the nose consciousness is that when it does smell something, it can alert you to things that your eyes and ears cannot be aware of, and even your mental consciousness is not aware of. The smell consciousness can be quite powerful. Just think of when you're walking out in the yard at night and then you smell a skunk. That's a powerful thing. You may not be smelling anything now unless you're having something cooking in the kitchen, um, but again, the nose consciousness only cognizes smell. It does not tell you what it is. It's that mental consciousness that tells you what it is. Now let's go to the next one, which is the tactile consciousness, and just notice what you're feeling. The softness of the seat you're on, where your hands are touching, the feel of the air going through your nose, the temperature of the air. Just consciously focus on the tactile sensations that you're experiencing.
Aches and pains.
Aches and pains, whatever it may be. Try not to label them.
Right. Well, that's
Try not to
that's what I'm
label them.
saying.
Yeah.
That's actually was my point.
Do your best
It's
to
a
not label.
sensation.
We're going to get to the mental conceptual consciousness, and it's a pretty funny exercise actually for me anyway. All right, but just try and let's go back to what you're sensing, feeling, tactile. Okay, now let's do the taste. And here, just whatever you may be tasting at the tip of your tongue, maybe nothing. If it's nothing, it's nothing. But just focus on that for a bit. That is a consciousness. The tongue is an organ, but the consciousness is what experiences the taste. Okay, let's move on now to the conceptual consciousness. This is that voice in our head that's telling us what things are, what we think about them, how we feel about them. Is it good? Is it bad? It's almost like running nonstop. And this is a very interesting exercise. So keep all of your senses open again. Look directly, just sort of in front of you, as if you're looking through something. And now focus, bring your attention to your conceptual thoughts. Don't let it slide to anything else. Keep your attention directly like a laser on your conceptual thoughts. Okay, that's enough. I don't know about you, but what happens to me when I do that is like my conceptual thoughts go into hiding.
Yes, I couldn't think of.
I couldn't
things.
think. I mean, is this like, what happened? What happened to this noise chatterbox that's telling me what I'm hearing, what I'm seeing, what I'm tasting, what I'm touching? All of a sudden, you focus on the mental conception itself, and it goes, oh, no.
I was able to not do that.
How did that
The
work for you?
Opposite happened, and I was just shocked at it. Skipped from the story behind the water bowls to somehow Sue Johnson, and then my mom, and then things about my mom, and then Isabella, and it's just and what I was aware of was just like how this is going on all the time.
Mhm.
We don't normally make note of the myriad of little associations we're making nonstop.
I know.
It's freaky, including these people and situations and life experiences. They just zoom past
The
so fast.
stream of consciousness, right? I mean, it's just one thing to the next, to the
I
next,
mean,
to the
and
next.
it's not even like you're even noticing them. They're just
Popping up.
they're just running.
When that happens, and now we're going to actually try and get to the awareness that's underneath all of it. When that happens, when it arises, think of it like just bubbles arising, and they're actually arising out of this clear light mind, this pure awareness and clarity, this knowing, this thing that cognizes and can understand. It is not conceptual. So when the conceptual thoughts start coming up, think of them as just bubbles arising out of that clear light mind, and then they either pop or they retreat back into the clear light mind. When you were doing the mental consciousness, were you just sort of focusing on nothing, just sort of looking through things? Yeah. Okay.
Well, I mean, yes and no, because I mentioned the water bowls.
Mhm.
So it was, I think I was mixing in.
Yeah, I think what helps, like
Picking up
the
the-
way the Dalai Lama said, and also Pongap Rinpoche, when he talked about Mahamudra, to try and find something blank to look at. Like if you can be in front of a blank wall, then you won't be so easily distracted. But with this kind of meditation, they always say, keep your eyes
I wanna
open,
say,
keep everything
too,
open.
I'm experiencing some physical discomfort in some of my limbs.
Yeah,
And so it.
right. And that will trigger conceptual consciousness
Yeah,
as well.
yeah.
Yeah. And there's not, what can you do about that at this point? One of the reasons they try to say get in as comfortable a posture as possible and as alert posture as possible, so that that's not detracting from it. So now what we're going to try and do is realize that with all of those sense consciousnesses and mental consciousness that we were going through, there was an awareness underneath of all of that. Something, for instance, if you're, let's go back to the conceptual consciousness. Now just look at anything and just let your conceptual consciousness go wild with it. Like free reign. Like let your conceptual consciousness tell you what it's looking at. Let it describe it for you. Let it tell you what you think about it. Look at something and let your conceptual consciousness do its thing.
I'm remembering that when we bought that blanket in Cusco, the guy had to go walk to another town to run our Amex card.
Oh. So you're remembering a whole history that goes with the blanket on the couch. What I want us to understand is that there's something that is aware of what the conceptual consciousness is telling us. That's the thing we're trying to reach. The thing that's aware of the thoughts, not the thoughts, but who or what, and this is the clear light mind. The clear light mind is the thing that's aware of the conceptual consciousness. The clear light mind is the thing that's aware of the ear, the nose, the sense consciousness, okay? So again, and as the Dalai Lama said, don't expect, to go into like full-blown experience of clear light consciousness. You may get a glimpse, and a glimpse is enough to start. You may not get anything, but just this little meditation is enough to get started. Try it on your own, okay? So again, all eyes open, ears open, everything open. See if you can find a patch of something that's, kind of neutral. And as if you're looking through it, try to focus on just mere awareness that underlies all of these other gross consciousnesses. There's a thing that is aware even of your mental consciousness. Okay, we could stop there. The idea is to make these sessions initially very short, because this is actually quite a advanced meditation. It's interesting that you put it as the first meditation. And if you practice this, you will begin to get little glimpses of what they call this radiant luminosity and awareness.
I would like to plug one of your upcoming things after Robina on the death process.
Okay.
Christopher's going to be covering.
Well, I can go ahead.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just mention it because
I will.
That the reason I'm mentioning is not the plug, but because the resultant stage at the end of the dissolution of the elements.
Oh yeah, clear light
is a
mind.
profoundly
Right.
wonderful way to.
What I want to say about the clear light mind, and I've said this before, it continues without a break, endlessly, even through death, even through into our next life, all the way to Buddhahood. The Buddha has a clear light mind. You know, it just continues endlessly. We have it. That awareness is beginningless and endless. So it's there all the time. We've got it. The question with this, the trick with this meditation is to try and find out what it isn't and then locate what it is. And when you do locate what it is and you have the experience of it, it becomes easier and easier to get there. And it's worth it. I mean, it's definitely worth it because it'll give you such a feeling of possibility and expansion that I would just say keep up with it.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
with the
and
dissolution
so in the
of
death process, the clear light mind is the thing that we finally experience at the point of death.
As all the other consciousness.
Has all the other gross consciousnesses sort of dissolve. And if we can practice this particular meditation and become aware of what the clear light mind is, when experience occurs at death, we will recognize that. And if we have studied anything about emptiness, you know, we can then meditate on emptiness. And they say, if you can do that, and you can during the death process, and you can meditate on emptiness, you can gain a direct, non-conceptual experience of emptiness, which is the first, you know, this thing that's just really going to shoot you towards the enlightenment process. So this meditation is definitely worth doing.
Right, because it helps you be during that death process in a calm state and not in a fear state.
Gives you something to look forward to.
Right, and so if you're in a fear state at the time of death, then that propels you into the next potential life outcome.
Absolutely.
So if you are able to recognize it, be in that calm state, then whatever happens next, you're going to be entering it in that calm state of mind and have a better auspicious kind of rebirth because of that.
So we're all going to die. There's no way we're going to get off this planet alive, right? I mean, unless, you know, we fly to the moon. But even if we go to the moon, we're going to die at some point.
The human body.
Yeah. So this meditation is going to help us during the death process. So it's worth continuing with. All right, I want to, I guess we just have, 6 minutes. So let's go to the closing prayers. Coming next week is
Sundays.
On Sundays, not on Saturdays, but
4 Sundays.
4 consecutive Sundays. And you can go to our website to find out exactly when is it going to be, the time, do you know? 11, same?
11 to 12.
11 to 12:30, an hour and a half. Is Venerable Robina Courtin. Some of you may know who she is. She's a Australian Buddhist nun. Very sharp, very quick, very witty, and such a great teacher for Westerners. And she's going to be talking about bodhicitta, which is the mind that aspires to become enlightened.
She's going to be. Well, what I requested was that she
Awakening
teach
mind?
and do working meditations on the various methods that they teach to achieve bodhicitta.
Okay, so she'll be going through these methods that we can
Teaching the
achieve.
methods and then
We can achieve this altruistic mind that intends to become enlightened for the benefit of all sentient beings. It's a powerful mind if we can actually truly embrace it. So she's going to be coming for starting next week. Not coming. It will be it's Zoom. It will be 4 consecutive Sundays, and then after that, then I will go through the whole death process and how that works, what we experience at death, and bring that clear light mind meditation back into that. So I now want to go to our closing prayers. No, I'm not leaving the meeting. I just almost left the meeting. No, I want to go to the closing prayers. Okay. Share screen. Share. There we go. There we go. There we go. There we go. So these are the dedication prayers. And let's do these in English so that they they make sense to our minds here.
You know,
Oh, you know them in Tibetan? Okay. Or we can do them in Tibetan, but you just make sure you read the translation so you know what it is that we're singing. We'll go ahead and do it in Tibetan. Dedication of merit. Due to this merit, may we soon attain the enlightened state of Guru Buddha, that we may liberate all sentient beings from suffering. Jang chup sem chog rim poche ma kye panam kye gyu chi kye panyam pa me pa yang gong ne gong du pe war shu tong ye tawa rimpoche ma kye panam kye gyu chi kye panyam pa me pa yang gong ne gong du per war shu. Okay. Thank you, everybody. This has been a pleasure. All of it has been a pleasure. And one of the reasons I love teaching so much is that it forces me to really know what it is I'm talking about and to study and to meditate more. It actually really helps with my own practice. And I would recommend it to anybody who wants to strengthen their practice of whatever it is. Teach it, because it will strengthen whatever practice you have. Okay. Kavita says, hold on. Oh, Kavita has put the link. She put a link in the chat to the playlist of all 5 sessions, and you can grab them. We'll also put a link on our website as well.
And maybe
Yeah.
if it's not already.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Christopher, before everybody goes, I want to say thank you so much. This is Genevieve again, by the way.
Oh, hi, Genevieve.
Hi. Oh, this is wonderful, and I'm really thrilled about the upcoming series beginning next week. Will we also receive information on the link for that, or is that going to be in person?
Yes. Do you get the emails?
I do.
Yeah, the link will be in those emails. I've been sending that actually in the emails for this class. I've been sending the link to Rabina as well. But coming this week, it's all going to be Venerable Rabina, and the links will be there. Hey, Terry. Hi.
Will those be available at a later date?
So much.
Also, or
Will which be available?
the Robina's talks? Will they?
Yeah.
Be available later?
Yes. We'll also post those as well.
Okay. Yeah, I just got an email about you guys and decided to check it out, and I really enjoyed it. This was really good.
Thank you. Glad you liked it.
I'm in Dallas, and I have a teacher that I listen to on Sunday, so I'll have to wait for Robina's teachings.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You're in Dallas? I just moved from Dallas down here, and I studied at the Buddhist Center of Dallas on Greenville.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I have a teacher who's actually in the Jonan lineage, and so it's mostly on Zoom right now. Hopefully he'll be able to meet in person before long.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, yes, again, thank you guys so much, and I'm going to get off of here, but see you guys next week.
Okay.
All right. Thanks so much, Christopher.
You're so welcome.
Bye.
It was just
Thank
great. And Kavita, very grateful.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hi, y'all. Hi, Tracy and Brian.
We'll be all together someday in person.
I know.
Yes, I look forward to that.
Yes.
See ya. Okay.
Hi, Meredith.
Hi, Terry.
Bye-bye.
See ya. Bye-bye.
Bye. Where is it?